Hi there. Let me first say something about the US. I think it's now a malign country. You should simply regard it as an enemy country. It no longer has a real rule of law. It doesn't practice any democracy. It has bankers at the helm, and these bankers are trying to basically destroy as much as the Western world as possible to weaken it, maybe not to favor Americans, but to favor the so-called plutonomy, the rich people of the world that have a choice where they want to live and that have enough assets and money stored and enough real estate and stuff like that to move around freely around the world. And they basically seem to be wanting to exhaust and destroy as much of the world as possible, and especially the non-Western world, so that the energy that's still available can be used in the West, and there will not be too much price pressure on oil until it runs out. You know, Europeans are just not aware of it, and we still consider America a reasonable country. And I even have personal relationships with people that I think are pretty crazy, but it's not a nice country anymore. You know, if you ask for Twitter data that you shouldn't be asking for in a way that's basically completely it's like somebody was drunk on a Saturday night and had to finish that subpoena and did it. You know, or if you just the way that the US at the moment goes about prosecuting people that film officers of the law, police agents let's say in public, putting them in jail. That is not normal behavior. And the way also that the politics is conducted in the US, and the way the whole mentality has nothing to do with what goes on in Holland or in France or in Germany or in Belgium or in England, for that matter. It's not the same language. And that's important to know. You know, actually I think that the US behaves like the war has already started, and they're simply trying to get as much advantage while people are still asleep. It's the same process all the time. You always have somebody that wants something and it is alert and trying to get it, and is hoping that everybody will be asleep and not notice that he's taking it. There's an interesting move in the whole gold and silver market. I think you should still try to buy as much silver as you can. Crash JP Morgan, buy silver. Support Max Kaiser. He seemed to have chosen for his Kaiser website, and is not so much going for his Pirate My Film project anymore. Or he's disillusioned in the initiative of the people that were on the Pirate My Film site. I had a project that was fully funded, but I didn't get paid. Anyway, but support him in that effort, and it's really not a dying meme at all. Somebody said that, just buy some silver and watch it going the next few months, and you'll be very happy later. It's a no-brainer, really. Because the world is logistically under pressure of oil. That's the way I look at it. The more expensive oil gets, the more hard it gets for things to go around the world. And that means that it starts to matter where things are. If you're trading a ton of silver, or a ton of iron, or a ton of zinc, or whatever it is, you used to be doing that on a central market in London or something, and the price would be for 50 ton silver or something like that. Or let's talk metals, let's steel or something like that. You buy it and you sell it, and it's simple, because it doesn't really matter where it is. Well, now it starts increasingly more, first of all, to matter where it is, and second of all, to matter whether it is, because of course there's lots of fraudulent paper around. And that will increase the location specificity, which of course hugely impacts the cost of owning something. You can be very happy camper. I own a ton of lead in Delhi. Well, that's completely useless if you're in Amsterdam, because you're in Amsterdam and your lead is in Delhi. You can do nothing with it. If you want to have it, you have to transport a ton of lead to Amsterdam first, and that's expensive. That will increase. Also, mining will be more difficult, and apparently because of the coal inundation in Australia, processing steel will become difficult, because there's lots of fuel that's basically lost. They don't have their cheap fuel anymore. That will be more expensive. All the better, because it's hugely polluting. and we should recycle and use solar thermal power. But eventually that will lead to a situation where the markets can't function anymore, because the markets depend on indifference of physical aspects of the material. Imagine you have a silver COMEX market where you constantly, somebody is running in and out of that warehouse, moving the silver around to different let's say niches in the warehouse where it's, I was in a Pommery cave in France, a champagne producing company, and they have very nice caves on the ground which are made of calc, limestone, maybe that's the word. Was carved out by Romans in the 11th century. And they have different niches which says Belgium, Brussels, Rotterdam, Moscow, where they keep the champagne that is intended for clients in those areas. That's reserved. If the COMEX would work like that, if it was a physical thing, then it wouldn't be functioning, because it would be way too expensive and just a big hassle. So they don't do that, they just have the warehouse and they administer it. That will become increasingly more difficult as oil prices rise and as physical moving of stuff becomes more expensive, because it starts to matter. And maybe not with silver, because it's all in one place, but other stuff is simply not in one place. Oil is also not in one place. It has to be shipped from one side of the earth to the other. And it can be moving around. And the same with food, with all the other stuff. And ultimately that will lead to the whole market to shut down. Different markets in heavy commodity, let's say, first. That would be my simplistic analysis. And then countries saying, well, listen, we need steel. We need that coal. And we need to have it at the price that we are willing to offer, or in return for what we want to offer for it. And if you don't want to give it to us, we're going to take it. And that's where the war starts. That's how I look at it. There's a very interesting... so eventually, rise in fuel prices, rise in commodity prices will break markets, and eventually that will mean countries will have to start fighting for what they need. Of course, well, anyway, there's lots of it to say of it, but I want to talk about something else which I find more intriguing at the moment, which is that India is trying to find a way to get the oil from Iran. It's probably not the only country, and it will not be the only country in the future, because Iran has reserves, and China and US and India and Europe and of course parts of Africa will all want to have that oil. And Iran is a little bit like a beautiful woman that is put in a high security jail with men that have not been seen a woman for like 100 years. See, Iran has something that the rest of the world needs, and it's going to give it to one country or another country or another country or another country. One thing is sure and certain: it's not going to keep it. That's not going to happen. The only way Iran can keep its oil is by destroying one of these countries that is attempting to get it nuclearly, but then getting destroyed by nuclear war. And then it's going to give it. So it has a choice. So this woman in the jail can put up a fight, but in the end she's gonna have a boyfriend there, and it's probably gonna be the strongest. So that's the real situation of Iran. But in the current environment, India is trying to make a deal where they buy oil for gold. That's what they're trying to set up, apparently. And that doesn't work, because several reasons. Let's say it is, of all the. So first of all, it doesn't work because you will run out of gold. There's more oil for sale than there's gold to buy it with. That is the reason why the US went off the gold standard, according to my account of history. Is it found that gold paying for oil with gold and silver is a limiting factor, because even if the country that receives all that gold or silver spends it, there's a limit to that spending. It's basically indirect. First of all, you can, if you want to, let's say, put a limit to the amount of oil you sell, There's a very simple method. You print your own currency, which can be of paper, you don't need gold. You print enough to sell exactly the amount that you want to sell in oil. And then you allow other countries to buy your currency, so you can buy whatever you want in other countries with the currencies of the other countries. So that would mean that, for instance, if Iran wants to sell 200 billion rial or something like that of Iranian oil, they sell those 200 billion rial around the world. And then they can buy with euros and yen and whatever they want in the world, and they will be, of course, rid of some of their oil. But there's a limit to that. Gold and silver have exactly the same effect. In the end, it seems that it's a universal currency, so you can store it, but in the end, it limits the amount of oil that you can buy from a country, because they don't want to spend more gold, so they don't need more gold. And that's why the US went off the gold standard. They went to a printed piece of paper. They also, let's say, according to my weird history, in 1969 Israel had a nuclear weapon. In 71 the US went off the gold standard, which in my account means that Israel was the deterrent towards Saudi Arabia in a nuclear way, to make sure that it sold the oil. At the same time, of course, the rulers of Saudi Arabia were playboys, and they were completely brainwashed to want to have, let's say, completely hedonistic lifestyle. Plus that the banks helped a lot with duping the Saudis out of their reserves, money reserves that they were accumulating, the paper money reserves even, because also paper reserves ultimately have the same problem. So one advantage of paper money is that you can print as much as you want to have oil, but it has the same drawback as money that a country creates itself when it wants to sell oil, as gold and silver. And so at a certain point a country has just stacks and stacks and millions of stacks of dollars, and it doesn't really know what to do with it anymore. And maybe it buys a lot of weapons and it starts a war with you. That's what it could have been doing. Anyway, but for some reason India seems to be on the first step of this whole mental journey, and it's going to try to buy oil using gold from Iran. Well, that will work for a couple of years, and then India will be more addicted to oil, and it will realize that it has no choice but to force Iran to deliver the oil, and it has to make a new deal. What does it mean for the price of gold, you might ask? I'm not really sure, because it's not going to work. So what it means is that if you're in Iran, you're probably going to pay very little for gold, because after all they need real stuff for it. If they don't make it themselves, they can basically only accumulate it, and that will make gold rarer, so that will make the price of gold higher, obviously. But there's many other reasons why gold will be important, and that has more to do with safeguarding justice, because it's about how much effort you put into something, and that's going to be more and more important. Of course, alternative energy sources are coming online, and there are many of those, which will create a completely different world in which you might find that the most liquid, most usable alternative energy source will become dominant and will start to wipe out other alternative energy sources. You get exactly the same dynamics. It would be really nice if there wasn't a climate change problem and we weren't all threatened by food shortages and all that stuff at the same time, because then, let's say, the game of alternative energies not versus coal and gas and oil, but versus other alternative energies sources would be interesting, because right now you already have nuclear against solar thermal. Solar thermal seems to be the cheapest form of alternative energy. And anyway, but this video is way too long. I think that India is either naive or disingenuous in their offer, and I think they shouldn't do it. They should simply step over the whole gold era of paying with gold. They should keep it. And they should realize that they have to make a deal with Iran, saying, listen, we're a big country, we need that oil, we're going to get it today or tomorrow, and you're going to like it or not, so, better better give it to us. And a more interesting idea would even be that there would be a broker in Iran with let's say, sitting behind a round table, and it would say to China and the US, or to the US and India, or to India and China, no, you two keep US off my back, and you'll get the oil. Or, any other coalition. And then, that's just a fantastic. Well, then basically the beautiful woman would have all the inmates at her feet, trying to please her as much as possible, and making sure that not two other inmates trash, that they not get trashed by other inmates because she had let's say, an angry look at them. That would be an interesting development also.